The late Winnie Mandela will be given a state burial as announced by the government. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, spoke with prominent South African scientist and political analyst, Professor Sifo Sipe, who was friends with Winnie Mandela and her ex-husband, on the icon she became in life and now in death.
I'm one of those who failed to meet Ma'am Winnie one-on-one. I tried so hard to get a one-on-one interview, but I understand her last major interviews were in 2014.
Yes.
So I tried much later, but that didn't work. But did your paths ever cross? And what was it like, if it did?
Oh, no, actually, she was quite a close friend. Actually, I spent a lot of time with her and also with Mandela. So I know both of them, and I've engaged both of them on one-to-one and also together. And but I also come from Soweto, born and raised. So the impact that both Mandela and Winnie Mandela has made in Soweto and South African politics is something that people like me could not avoid. So some of us were really, because of their presence, we became politicized early. So we were born into politics, and people sometimes ask, why are you guys so political? But part of it is that we couldn't help because we had the likes of Winnie Mandela. But one of the things that was most abiding about Winnie Mandela as a memory is that when Mandela went to jail, she became the only person who was able to keep the fires burning home, politically and at home. But most importantly is that she remained the only person at the time who was brave enough to tell the world that she's a member of the African National Congress. If you want to understand what she went through, when your husband is taken, given life imprisonment, and you've got two little kids, and you are not even allowed to see him, to touch him, and your only time when you're supposed to see him will be probably 20 minutes in 1 year, probably two visits. So you can understand that. And at the same time, you had a societal repression, because what they did is not only to take the leaders of the ANC, but also to ban the ANC, to ban all political liberation movements. So you had a suppression, but one person stood still, and she was banished, she was arrested, she was harassed, and we saw all that. But she had what you call never say die spirit. And beyond simply being a political activist, she was also a caring person. This is why some people cannot understand why somebody like that will go to squatter camps and the people will come in large numbers, because they know that when she goes there, she's not engaged in a PR exercise. She was a social worker at heart and the political animal, and she showed it.
She was quite soft-spoken but a firebrand at the same time, and she has quite a number of quotable quotes that we've been hearing in the past few days. Some have labelled her complex. She's had some controversy, a strong figure, and everything. No doubt, you can't push away what she may have done or she has done for the country, and for some people who are watching from afar. In terms of a legacy, how would you put a picture to paint Winnie Mandela?
Well, I think she has been called a mother of the nation, and that's not an accolade that you get through an election, through bribery. It's an accolade that is built over a number of years, because what it says that the people are saying, we can believe in you, and we believe that you are the person who should be leading. And also, what people also understood, and beyond the mother of the nation, they talk about a stalwart, they talk about an icon. All these words are given, they're not microwaved. They come because of decades of struggle. And she became a symbol against apartheid, not only in South Africa, but internationally. So it was not an accident. And some of the works that she did, one of them was to reflect on Nelson Mandela, and she came up with a book called Part of My Soul Went With Him. And if you read that book, it's one of those heart-wrenching books about what it means to be deprived of a life. So she never had a life. And she also talks about being the most unmarried woman, because she does not know what it is to be married. Within 2 years, her husband was taken, and you had the children to take care of, but the system did not leave you. And in a sense, the uprisings that took place in South Africa. If you talk about the 1976 uprising, you talk about 1985 when the ANC had decided that we should make South Africa ungovernable and apartheid unworkable. It was people like Winnie Mandela were in the forefront. So she was a leader who was willing to face them. But there's one thing that she did, was also to deal with the issue of fear. Most of our people were afraid to be arrested, were afraid to die, were afraid to be maimed. But what Winnie did with a fearless spirit was to make us overcome that. So during her time, we saw young people engaging the system, the military might of apartheid. And they were killed, but the more they killed us, the more others came. And she made sure that she attends every funeral. And like we always said that the blood of Matthias always water the tree of liberation. And this is what she embodied. Yes, the notion of controversial is something that now is emerging, that part of it has been orchestrated by the system. And if you read now, some of the white people were involved in they tell you that the part of it was not only about dealing with her, but also trying to diminish Mandela, to say, even if he's a hero, he's just an ordinary man. He has a wife who's ungovernable. But all these were part of a strategy to try to undermine Mandela. And even de Klerk himself had said that it was necessary for them to release Mandela so that people should see Mandela as an ordinary person. But what Mandela also did, I mean, on the day that divorced, he says, I love her, and I love her very much. But in the end, when Mandela died, the person who was next to Mandela was Winnie Mandela. So effectively what it says that from the beginning they were together, even up to the end.
Let's look at some of the controversies, just taking you back a little bit. Things that led up to that dramatic scene between her and Archbishop Emeritus at the TRC, where he said, why don't you just apologize? And you'll be much bigger than this. And she was staring at him. Later on, when she was speaking, not at the TRC, she said, I was seething with anger. And I'm asking God to forgive me for not forgiving him. What do you think was going through her mind? Because she was saying, should I apologize for apartheid? Or what? Should I be the one apologizing for that?
This is a very interesting history of our movement. And it shows the extent to which the men in the leadership had the difficulty with winning. South Africans were involved in a ferocious struggle against apartheid. And there were people who were seen as sellouts, and people dealt with them. And the ANC, even in exile, had to deal with those who were considered to be sellouts. And they were even killed in the camps. But when the ANC came, they wanted amnesty for all the acts of the ANC. So effectively, the ANC was taking responsibility of the mayhem that comes in the theater of struggle. But when it came to Winnie, they didn't ask for the same amnesty. They singled her out. And they also did not say she led many of us. She led masses of thousands of people from Khayelitsha, Cape Town to Soweto. They were engaged in. They were fine. They could be explained in the prosecution of struggle. But with her, they had to diminish her contribution. This is actually one of the saddest things that now, even with us, we are beginning to see it. But why were all of us who were engaged in struggle not being forced to face the so-called TRC? Why was she isolated? So that is, and when she saw that, she said, but I was a leader of troops. And the troops took command. I was in command. And if you're going to deal with the struggle, we must deal with it in totality, because all of us were engaged. And the system was ruthless. And what was interesting is how it was easy for black people and black government to move so quickly to forgive those who have done more harm, those who have actually driven people like we need to get engaged in the struggle, those who were forgiven under reconciliation. But with her, she had to be isolated. And she saw all that game. And she said, no, I didn't go this far to come and apologize for leading our people and my people to liberation. And had it not been Winnie, you would not have had 1976, you would not have had 1985, you would not have had at least the impetus that we saw with the young people say we are going to follow the footsteps of Nelson Mandela. And Winnie was in the front line. She was a leader, and she felt that she is not going to apologize for that. She's not going to apologize for having given her life in making sure that the country is liberated, while some people were sitting in air-conditioned rooms and houses while she was with the ordinary people.
When we come back after the break, Russia tries to redeem its image before the international community following this spy poisoning row with Britain. Stay with us.